Greetings, everyone. Greetings, everyone. Pleased that we're able to have this time together. And I want to be reflecting with you on the topic of tending the fire within. And I'd like to begin by clarifying how I'm understanding the word fire in this context. By fire, I'm using it as a metaphor for certain moments in our life where we're graced with a heightened sense of communal presence that doesn't have about it the feeling of that which ever ends. And I'd like to give a couple examples of this. That in our day-by-day life, we spend most of the things we're aware of them in passing on our way to something else. But every so often, something catches our eye, it gives us reason to pause. For example, we pause to see a tree, and we've seen many trees before. We're going to see many more. It's just a tree. But there's a certain moment where we're given to pause and ponder and to be present to the tree. And in that pausing, this is very subtle, we can experience ourselves undergoing a kind of a descent, dropping down into qualitatively deeper, more interior dimensions of the mystery of our own presence. In an ever deeper oneness of dropping down into deeper interior dimensions of the presence of the tree. And there's a kind of a sense of oneness that happens that cannot be explained like this. And to go a bit further with it, we can also have the sense that this deepening communal oneness with the tree is we're dropping down together into an abyss-like depth that's welling up and giving itself to us unexplainably as this moment of oneness with the tree. And this abyss-like bottomless depth of presence has no name, but we give it a name in different traditions. And so in our traditions, it's God. We experience the generosity of God, welling up and giving the infinity of God away as the mystery of this moment of being awakened to the divinity of the tree and the divinity of ourselves and our shared nothingness without God. And we get a sense of sacredness about this. We could make the same observation about every foundational dimension of our life. Intimacy with another person, being in the presence of a child, a path of long suffering, patience and long suffering, a poet, the presence of a poet, the artist, a moment of prayer, the quiet hour at day's end, lying awake at night in the dark, listening to our own breathing. From time to time, it grants itself with this fire, a kind of a quiet luminosity that has great depth to it and great intimacy to it. These moments of which I speak sometimes are quite intense, in the aftermath of which sometimes we're never quite the same. But usually it's not that way at all. They're extremely delicate. They're so subtle that if we weren't careful, we would have missed it like this. And what happens, they tend to also be very fleeting, and we return back to the day by day. Off to the next meeting, we turn the TV up a little louder, whatever, have another donut, whatever we're doing. But little by little, we start to reflect and to see our day-by-day life from the standpoint of these moments of awakening. And when we notice that the moments of awakening have about it the feeling of effulgence or fullness or homecoming. And we get this sense then, in the light of those moments, that we're in the momentum of the day's demands, that we're skimming over the depths of our own life, that we're suffering from depth deprivation. And what's really regrettable is that God's unexplainable oneness with us is hidden in the depths over which we're skimming. And then what starts to happen within us then is that there tends to be then, in the light of this depth deprivation, we get an insight into life. And that is to say that the essential, that is, that which is given to us in this metaphorical fire of this quiet oneness, never imposes itself on us. But the unessential is constantly imposing itself on us. And therefore, it creates a kind of a grace dilemma this way. See, how can I learn not to get so caught up in the complexities of the day by day that I keep losing my sense of connectedness with this depth, which alone is ultimately real. Merton says it beats in our very blood whether we want it to or not. And we can't make the moments happen. It doesn't lie in our power to make them happen. But here's the key. We can freely choose to assume the stance that offers the least resistance to being overtaken by the fire that we cannot make happen. And this is the daily rendezvous. This is our daily rendezvous. And so the key here then, this is so personal how this happens this way. Define those acts, define those persons, define those modes of service, define those the intimacy of loss, define moments of creative unfolding, moments where you feel something's being asked out of you and you don't yet know what it is yet. It's like that. It goes on and on. Endless modalities of these quickenings. And so what we can do then, we can't make them happen. And here's the point then, that lovers cannot make their moments of oceanic oneness happen, but together they can assume the stance that offers the least resistance to be overtaken by the oneness. The poet cannot make the poem happen, but the poet knows how to assume the inner stance that offers the least resistance to be overtaken by the gift of the poetic. Those committed to healing can't make healing happen, but they can assume the stance that offers the least resistance to healing. And so the point then for us, I think, when I was in the monastery, the whole monastic life was all carefully designed to protect what I'm talking about, really. But the world we live in out here isn't like that. So we have to create a contemplative culture in our heart. See? I will not play the cynic. I will not break faith with my awakened heart. I know that in my most childlike hour, the cutting edge of the pain, the sweetness of the glance, the smell of the flower, I was graced by what transcends and permeates every moment of my life. See? And therefore, I want to set aside a quiet time, like a rendezvous of availability to this way. And so we have to, we stay with it. We have to be patient. We have to be calm. We have to be receptively open this way in the rendezvous. And at the end of each rendezvous, each daily kind of rendezvous with the deeper place, we ask for the grace not to break the thread of that sensitivity as we go through the day. And we'll notice this way that it breaks many times. But we have faith, although it breaks many times from our end, that never breaks from God's end. So Merton says when we go to sit in prayer, we start by reminding ourselves that we belong to God. And he said, and when it comes to prayer, we remind ourselves that the deepest way to understand is to realize that we're infinitely understood. And little by little, throughout the day, this can become an underlying habitual sensitivity, unfolding in the rhythms of life itself, as it is. Not the way we would want it to be. Maybe we didn't plan on this, but it is the way it is. And there's this fire is kind of quietly shining in it and drawing us onward. And so we don't live in a monastery, but out here in the world, I think this is what the living school's about. I think that's what the daily meditations are about. This is what centering prayer is about. If we look, we have to look for it. And we have to just decide that we're going to live this way. It's a kind of obediential fidelity that nobody can see. But it matters more than everything. And we try to live out of it with integrity. And it shines out and transforms the way we relate to people, because it changes the way we see everybody. Everyone's like an infinitely love-broken person in a fleeting, often not so fair, gorgeous, lovely, unexplainable world. And so that's my meditation on tending the inner fire.